Welcome to the Dead-Celebs podcast, the final curtain call, where tonight we're going to take a look at bizarre death of a Mr. Brandon Lee.
Welcome to the Dead-Celebs podcast with your hosts, Brent Novak and Tana Satterley.
In a crazy, coincidental death, and we talked about this and why we decided to do Brandon Lee is because episode 1, Anna Nicole Smith dies similar to her longtime idol Marilyn Monroe, dies in bed like Marilyn, dies of the same thing as Marilyn. Episode 2 is Chris Farley. Farley dies just like his idol John Belushi. And then we get Brandon Lee, who dies not exactly like his dad, but on set like his dad. All right. So what is going on with you? Anything going on with you before we get started?
I am doing a improv class. Yay! Starting that on Saturday. The famous Carolina Improv.
That's amazing. And I got a chance to look at your website too. Do you want to share that? I like your little website there.
Oh, thank you. You can check that out at tanasatterley.com.
We're going to go into celebrities that died in March of 2023.
Oh, dang you.
His name is Gary Rossington. He's the founding guitarist for Lynyrd Skynyrd and the last original member of the classic Southern rock band. He is the last. So if you see Lynyrd Skynyrd in concert, nobody's an original band. Rossington, a static figure, wasn't a showboat on stage, but his skillful and slippery slide playing on the hits such as Freebird helped to fuel the band's legend. Died on March 5th at 71. No cause of death was given. Do you know who this man is?
I don't, but I think, is he a politician?
No. Hey, that's a good guess. His name is Robert Blake. So movie and TV actor, Emmy winner for his role in the 1970s TV show Beretta. As a youngster, Blake starred in the R-Gang comedies and acted in The Treasure of Sierra Madre as an adult. He was praised for his portrayal as real-life murderer Perry Smith in the movie of Truman Capote's true crime bestseller, In Cold Blood. He died March 9th at the age of 89. Willis Reed was a legendary basketball star and called the captain. His big claim to fame was there was a playoff game in the 1970s. He played for the Knicks, and he came out injured. And the crowd just went behind him and they won the game. And it's the Willis Reed moment. Tom Sizemore, best known for his roles in such movies as Saving Private Ryan, Natural Born Killers, True Romance, Heat, and The Relic. He died March 3rd at 61 years old. He had suffered a brain aneurysm on February 18th at his home in Los Angeles. Yeah.
That's very sad.
Yeah. I don't think I said how Willis Reed died. No cause of death was given, but Reed had been suffering from congestive heart problems. Last celebrity. His name is Lance Riddick. He's a character actor who specialized in authority figures in movies and TV, known for his roles in The Wire, Fringe, and John Wick. He was 60 years old. He died March 17th. It does not say how he died.
Now, how old was he?
60.
Oh, man.
Just a puppy. Yeah. So there you go. Those are the celebrities that died in March of 2023. Check out our sister podcast, Talk Murder to Me. Step into the captivating world of true crime with an unexpected twist of humor, John's compelling narratives, and Jen and Nicole's amazing banter. This podcast offers an entertaining and unique approach to crime storytelling. Talk Murder to Me can be found on any podcast platform, also streaming live Saturdays on YouTube. Let's go to our new segment. This is a brand new segment. Are they dead or are they alive? We're going to start, Tana, with this man right here. Do you know who this is first?
Oh, he looks very familiar.
So you're probably not going to know if he's alive or dead.
I feel like I've seen him in a lot. He might be dead.
His name is Christopher Plummer. And is your guess dead or alive?
I think that he's dead.
He is. He died in 2021. So well done.
Thought I remembered that name. Yes. Okay.
Good job. You are rocking and a rolling. His name is Bill Pullman.
I think he's alive.
He's alive. Is he alive or is he dead? And your guess is?
I think he's. I hope he's alive. I'll be really sad if he's not.
He is alive. You are
Okay.
right. He's 69 years old and he's alive. I wanted you to be confused with Bill Paxton. That was the whole.
No.
Oh.
Bill Pullman is in one of my favorite movies, While You Were Sleeping, with Sandra Bullock.
Oh, Sandra Bullock. That's
Yes.
sweet. Who's up next? He's one of the original Monty Pythons. His name is Eric Idle. Is he dead? Is he alive?
I think he's dead.
I think he's dead. Is that your final answer?
Yes.
He's alive and he's 80 years old. So you got your
Good for
first one
him,
wrong.
though. Good for him.
Right? Eric Idle. I tried to find one of the worst pictures of him.
I thought for sure. I mean, bless his heart. Good for him, though.
I know. Well, here you go. He looks like a shell of himself.
He really does.
Do you know who this is?
Yes. The Price is Right.
Yes, it's Bob Barker. That is
Bob
correct.
Barker.
Is Bob Barker alive or dead?
I think that he's dead.
He is alive.
Yes. Oh, is
he's
he really?
alive, and he's
Oh,
90 as of January 20th,
Okay.
2023.
Okay.
Bob Barker is 99 years old.
Oh, wow. Oh, I'm so
Yes.
glad.
I know. Good. I think he's doing okay. I don't know. This man is a sports celebrity. He was the MVP of Super Bowl III. His name is Joe Namath. Tana, is he alive or dead?
I think he's alive.
You think he's alive?
Yeah, I think so.
Final answer?
Yes.
He's alive. He's 80 years old and he
Is
is
he really 80?
alive. He's 80 years old.
Wow.
So good for Joe. So our last one, let me quick find him.
Okay.
Here we go. Our last dead celeb. Are they dead or alive? This is Nelson Mandela. Dead or alive, Tana?
I think he's dead.
Okay. You think he's dead?
I think so.
He is dead.
Okay.
He died in 2013. So well done. I think, what did you miss on? You missed on Bob Barker and Eric Idle, right? So 4 out of 6. Well done.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I know. I'm impressed. So are you familiar with the Mandela effect?
Yes.
Okay. Because people thought Nelson Mandela was dead and here he's alive.
Yes.
And there's like the Berenstain Bears kind of thing. So that's why I put this guy in there because like, is he dead? I don't know.
Right. Yeah, no, but I remember that when he died. So
okay, good.
Yeah.
What was one of the biggest things that stuck out for you with Brandon Lee?
Well, as a person, I think that he was very level-headed, even for being a celebrity and being who his dad was. He was very introspective, and I think he loved poetry, and he had some great quotes, which we'll share towards the end.
You told me before the show you didn't care for his acting.
Well,
and I'm gonna agree with you on that. I'm gonna agree with you.
And let me tell you why.
Yeah.
I think because in The Crow, at least, it was more of just the action, the stunts, and the choreography and all of that. It's an action movie, so all of that obviously very impressive, and he knew what he was doing. But as far as the actual, tender moments or just the dialogue with acting in general, I wasn't overly impressed.
That's not to bash on him in any type of way, but what he did in The Crow from an entertainment standpoint, an action film standpoint, it's really, really entertaining. So Brandon Lee, if you do not know, which you may not, his dad was the very famous Bruce Lee, an action star in his own right. Bruce Lee passed away on set way back, I believe in 1973. Here's a picture of Brandon and his dad, Bruce. According to legend and some of the interviews that we saw, they were starting to train Brandon in the martial arts early on. Jokingly, I guess, sort of right here, right?
Yeah, looks like it.
Brandon had a sister. Her name was Shannon. And Brandon's mom, I believe she was a tall Swedish blonde.
Caldwell was her maiden name, I believe.
Okay.
Brandon was trained in Bruce's own style of martial arts, of Kung Fu, Jeet Kune Do. Yeah, that was a big part of their lives, their family. But he was only 8.5 when his dad passed. When you're talking about his childhood, there's only a small window, that you reference his dad. Most of that was learning martial arts.
At the age of 5, Bruce would take Brandon on talk shows and he would break boards, 1-inch boards, in half. Like,
Mm-hmm.
talk about pressure and stress on a 5-year-old.
Yeah.
My 5-year-old would be crying.
Yeah.
I don't want to do this, Daddy.
Right?
It's
That's pretty intense for a 5-year-old.
really intense,
Yeah.
crazy. Yeah.
But I guess if he'd been studying and learning it since he was a toddler, then probably no problem for him.
From there, Brandon moves to the United States.
There was some mention he got in trouble as a teenager. He was kicked out of 2 different high schools. And it looks like he took some time off and hitchhiked around the United States. And then he came back and he passed his high school equivalency test.
Yes, I saw that too. He got kicked out of his high school and ended up getting his
Yeah.
GED. There was a lot of fights, which is crazy because I guess bigger kids want to push him just because he's Bruce Lee's son.
That's so mean.
So mean, right? I know.
Yeah.
During this time, he's studying with a Dan Isanto, who was one of Bruce's pupils. He does this starting at the age of 9, so shortly after Bruce's death. And then he decides that he doesn't want to really be involved in this. He doesn't want to be in martial arts. He starts seeing a lot of pictures of his dad at these classes and says, this is not for me. He actually starts to go play soccer, trying to find his identity through school. You had mentioned his GED. So he's a troubled young lad. So he goes and studies at Emerson College in Boston.
Yeah, and he studies the Lee Strasberg technique.
And obviously from our review of his movies, he didn't grasp it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
I'm just kidding.
Aww.
He gets a job as a script reader for a casting director. Tells him he should probably get back into martial arts reluctantly.
And probably some good advice.
Some good advice. I know. And I've told friends too. And like you had mentioned to me earlier, you're taking an acting class with a casting director, right? Coming up. What a great idea. I can't say enough what a great idea that is, because they're the people that are going to recommend you for the job. So I did it every time I could. And I've told friends that they should be doing it and they don't listen because sometimes it costs $40 or $60 or $80, but I'm not paying for an audition. Well, then they may never see you,
Right.
So,
right.
Crazy.
Do what you got to do.
So since Brandon dies at 28, we don't have a whole lot on this guy, right?
Right.
Every single interview I see is mentioning, what about your dad, Bruce? What about your dad? How was your dad, Bruce? How was your dad? Imagine that, that's stressful.
Yeah, one of his quotes was, "I don't want to only be remembered as Bruce Lee's son." And I don't blame him for that.
Yeah, well, it didn't work out because he's remembered as Bruce Lee's son and dying on set.
Yeah.
So that's terrible. I feel terrible for him.
Yeah, I do too.
Oh, look at that face.
Yeah, it's pretty intense.
That's pretty intense. I know. Yeah, it looks like that's his break, is Kung Fu the movie, according to IMDb, because it's an 86 film. It stars David Carradine from the original Kung Fu. Yeah,
and interestingly enough, he turned down an offer to be in Dragon, the Bruce Lee story. He did that so that he could be in The Crow. So,
but I just had seen that too, that in an interview, he said he said no to it, but he said, if this was later in my career, I probably would have said yes. I just don't want to be so tied in with my dad. And during that interview, he actually said, did anyone ever do this? Did any of the Douglas boys do that? And they're like, well, Kirk's still alive, at the time. They're like, we're not going to do a biop on a man who's still living. Brandon does a bunch of B movies. He's pretty excited about all of it. He gets on Jay Leno. He's kind of all over the circuit. Now, there's no way, because of Rapid Fire, that he's on Jay Leno if his last name isn't Lee. I'm sorry. There's not. Because I know some people that were in movies like Rapid Fire, and Jay Leno would not put him on their show.
One thing interesting about this movie, I've noticed, it was the first film that he actually got credit for the choreography.
Interesting. Yeah, that is pretty interesting. Wow. He actually does some movies in Hong Kong. It must be Legacy of Rage and some of these other ones. Crime Killer, maybe. I'm not sure. But one of his teachers, Jeff Amata, works with Brandon as a stunt coordinator in these other movies too. And here's an interesting little tidbit before we get in The Crow and the death of Brandon Lee? Stan Lee. I don't know if you're familiar with that name, Stan Lee. He is one of the co-creators of almost a lot of the Marvel characters, right?
Right.
He had a lot of cameos in these movies as well too. And there's a movie that recently came out called Shang-Chi, and it's a martial arts movie. And Stan Lee really wanted Brandon Lee to play Shang-Chi in an earlier adaptation of this movie. So Brandon really, like, I think Crow does well enough. If Brandon doesn't die in this film, he's at least like considered a B level, like, you know, probably a B plus level action star, like a Steven Seagal. The Crow, man, lot of stuff on The Crow. I think. Is there? I don't know.
The mini biography that he did, I guess, while filming this movie, because I guess I didn't know that the movie was based on an underground comic book, story of a rock and roll musician and his fiance who were brutally murdered. His quote on that was, and I thought it was perfect because, you know, this is what it's about. He said, "The Crow was about love, death, revenge, Edgar Allan Poe, and coming back from the dead."
It's very true too. And I actually fell into a documentary as I was watching certain documentaries about the writer of The Crow. And get this, he is, I don't remember his name. I should have written that down. I apologize, but he has a really terrible childhood. He's in foster care, teaches himself how to draw. His life is really kind of tragic. And he finally meets this girl who is darling of his life. She is positive where he is negative. And he just is in love with this girl. And she dies. She is struck by a car. A guy who is drinking and driving is going 70 miles an hour and strikes her and kills her out of nowhere. And so that's where the premise of The Crow came from, that he just, the tragedy and the loss and all that. So it's weird how entertainment comes through so many segments of tragedy.
Yeah.
Breaks your heart, right?
It does. It really does.
Shooting seems to be going fairly normal, right? Except there's a little bit of talk on some really rough shooting schedules, long hours, and shooting out. Brandon is shooting in 15-degree weather outside with rain.
Yeah, that was one thing I thought was interesting, that this was filmed during the blizzard of 93, which where he was in Wilmington, I don't think there was a lot of snow, but being in West Virginia, I remember the blizzard of 93. So I can't imagine, you know, well, obviously 15 degrees, that's pretty darn cold. And you can
Wilmington.
See, yeah, you can see the, you know, the fog, the breath, you know, outside, and I can't imagine.
Yeah. And he's out there shirtless and water. And the day that Brandon is, the day that he dies. So Michael Massey is playing Fun Boy. And there is a scene where Brandon comes in with groceries and is shot. There's a close-up shot from what the research I've done. There's a close-up shot to show the bullets physically in the gun. So those were fake rounds, right? And not to be fired.
Right.
So what happened was, I guess they fired it, and there was some sort of discharge that was lodged in the gun. So that when the blanks came in, and the more projectile of the blank shot out the remaining piece, and that's what struck Brandon.
There were multiple people who probably had a hand in that should have checked, and things that were, it was put away and it wasn't checked before it was put away. It wasn't checked when it was getting ready to be used. They didn't put a blame on anybody. And I'm glad for that. There was another article that talked about how sets are much safer because of that movie and safety protocols. You know, I mean, I don't know how much safer sets have been with the recent Alec Baldwin.
Right. I was just going to mention Alec Baldwin too.
Yeah. It sounded like nobody blamed anybody, you know, and they should have had better safety checks, you know, but I think that it was an unfortunate accident.
Yes. Yeah, I think so too. There's some conspiracies around it, that he was murdered, and this, you know, I'm a conspiracy theorist, but this one doesn't seem like there was any reason to kill this guy. It wasn't. Now maybe Bruce, we'll find out. I don't know when we get Bruce, but Brandon didn't seem like there was anything going on. You know, like it wasn't investigating anything, or so
No.
some really bad
You
luck.
know, a funny conspiracy that I came across. Let's see. Some suggest he was killed due to the connections to organized crime in Hong Kong, to retaliation from the Chinese mafia because of Lee's father, Bruce Lee, exposed ancient martial arts secrets of his film.
Maybe, probably not. But
Probably
maybe,
not.
yeah, probably not. But
Yeah.
maybe, I don't know.
Who knows?
I always say maybe, because it's like somebody's like, the earth is flat. Well, maybe, but I don't think it is,
Yeah.
but maybe, right?
Right.
Maybe. Because you never know. It could
You
be. We
never
don't
know.
know. We're just here. So, or
Right.
whatever the conspiracy is,
Right.
it always gets a maybe, because
Yes.
we are told so many different things at different times. So,
Absolutely.
but yeah, so when Brandon was shot, the director went over to him and realized he was unconscious, and
Mhm.
within 5 hours he was
Yeah.
gone.
Oh, it was something crazy, like 61 pints of blood,
Wow.
like the equivalent of 5 men, they said. And he still didn't make it. And I'm just like, "Oh my goodness."
The coincidence of all this is that he dies 20 years after his dad. Only 20 years. That's
Yeah.
so weird. And they both die on set. So
On set. Yeah.
gosh, weird, sad tales
Mm,
of a Mr. Brandon Lee. You have
yes.
anything to close out on this? So we kind of thought it'd be a short segment.
I do have a quote that I want to
Yes.
read that I think is very poignant. So, in an interview just prior to his death, Lee quoted a passage from Paul Bowles' book, The Sheltering Sky, which he had chosen for his wedding invitations, and it is now inscribed on his tombstone. Because we don't know when we will die, we get to think of life as an inexhaustible well, and yet everything happens only a certain number of times, and a very small number, really. How many more times will you remember a certain afternoon of your childhood, an afternoon that is so deeply a part of your being that you can't even conceive of your life without it? Perhaps 4 or 5 times more? Perhaps not even that. How many more times will you watch the full moon rise? Perhaps 20, and yet it all seems limitless.
Until it's not.
Yeah.
Right? Until
Yeah.
it's not. Well, and Brandon was engaged to get married too. So
Yeah.
what a bummer. Like that. Just Dead-Celebs is getting me depressed.
Mm,
No, that's not. It's
no.
not. It's all right. It's all right. It's
We're
okay.
honoring their lives.
We are honoring their lives. Absolutely.
We're remembering them.
We're remembering them, because somebody listening to this might have been like, I didn't know about that guy. What about that
Right.
guy? I'm going to do some more research.
There you go. And please do.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Brent and Tana. Thank you. Right. Well, that's it for Brandon Lee. This is Brent. I want to talk to you about my other podcast I do with this guy, Dan. What's it about? More celebrity talk. Are they, or were they ever a star? Good question. Dan and I will go into IMDb, check out their movies, check out their budget, when they were famous, when they weren't, when they flopped, all of it. All of it. Check it out. Are they, or were they ever a star? We don't know who we're going to talk about next week, but you can reach me, Brent at dead-celebs.com. And Tana, where can people reach you?
You can reach me at Tana, that's TANA, at dead-celebs.com.
Thank you very much. And thanks for listening.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
Have a great, wherever you are, have a great whatever it is. Bye-bye. For a legal disclaimer, please visit www.dead-celebs.com. The Actor Factor brings the industry knowledge to you firsthand from professionals, including working actors, directors, managers, and more. Find it anywhere podcasts are streamed. If you're thinking about suicide, or worried about a friend or loved one, would like emotional support, the Suicide Lifeline Network is available 24/7 across the United States. It's free and confidential. Just dial 988.